It's a very good question, and this allows me to reflect on, my life and how I did end up in this space as a psychologist. So very early on, I was a kid growing up near Niagara Falls, lived on the escarpment, and used to be always digging in the rocks because we had lots of cool fossils. And so everybody always thought, oh, she's going to be an anthropologist or an archaeologist or something. And that was kind of like the goal, right? That sort of, dissipated. And then when I was about 5, I started taking classical piano. And that was kind of my career path. I ended up getting a scholarship for classical music performance in college. And that was going to be it for me. And so after about 2 years, I said, I really, this is not my path. I enjoy it. Obviously, it's a part of me, but I had taken a philosophy class in college and decided, I don't know how it all clicked, but I said, I want to be a psychologist. And I never looked back and, went forward with that. So somehow I think music and the arts and maybe kind of my interest in, digging and searching, and that somehow all kind of culminated in the career that I've chosen. So in terms of the arc or, how my career progressed, I started off in the 90s in acute care hospital setting. And very exciting time, very significant psychologists and psychiatrists were working in this hospital with me. I was working with very, very severely mentally ill patients. When I had finished my internship at University of Buffalo, I had the opportunity to field test a group for Christine Courtois, who did a lot of research of trauma and sexual abuse survivors. So that was kind of my path in the 90s, working with severe trauma, dual diagnosis, chemical dependency, severely mentally ill. I did a lot of work with self-mutilators, eating disorders, and so on. At that time, I was also not married, didn't have kids, and so I had a lot more time and energy to devote. I also had started my private practice about the same time, which was across the street from the hospital. And I also recognized that there was a huge need for training in my hospital. They had never had any psychology trainees, and that was kind of a passion of mine. And I thought, let's just launch this. So I started off with a few practicum students and it grew into an incredible internship, and I received APIC approval, and it became, kind of a well-known internship program for psychologists in Chicago. So all of those things were kind of going on at the same time. And I was also kind of launching into the hospital, was starting to dabble with, hey, maybe behavioral health can work with the different medical specialties. So we would go in and work with cardiac rehab patients, with transitional care patients. There was a fertility clinic there at the time. So all of these things were kind of buzzing around during those first 10 years. Then I ended up getting married. So that was about my mid-30s and having kids. So things transitioned at that point, and I was strictly involved with my private practice. I was doing some teaching for undergraduates at Elmhurst College at the time, but really devoting my time to my practice and really moving towards more of a wellness model in my practice. I had started to get involved with yoga myself, and integrated an incredible hatha yoga teacher into my practice, and she is still part of my practice to this day. So that was kind of, my next steps. I was doing a lot of hypnosis, kind of mindfulness meditation, and the yoga and psychodynamic and cognitive behavioral therapy. It all kind of worked together nicely. So it seemed very organic and logical to go into prescribing as the next step. But I do recall one of my fellow mentors saying, gee, you're really into the wellness side and meditation and yoga. That the medication piece doesn't seem to make sense. And I said, oh, no, that's all part of the whole biopsychosocial picture. And we've had discussions since then, and he agrees. He says, yeah, that does seem to tie in nicely. So now I feel like the model and of my practice and what I'm doing is really much more of a wellness, looking at the big picture, looking at a whole lifestyle of an individual, and medication intervention may be one treatment option I might choose, but it's not the first tool in my shed.